Hey everyone, I hope you have a bunch of frames laying around because we are going to be making some over today with some inspiring ideas for you to use those frames up. I'm very excited about this first item. I can't wait for you all to see how we make this over. Now, I've had this in my stash at least 2 years. I knew I wanted to do something really different with it, but nothing has hit me for this project until I started thinking about frames and how to use them outside of the box. Now, this is not your typical frame that you just put a photo in, but we're going to make it into a frame. We're going to put something else in it. So I'm just showing you, it has these pegs at the bottom. It's a really cute piece. I paid, I think $3.99 is what it says, or $2.99. It has a sticker on it. I think it was from like TJ Maxx from the year 2000. So that makes this piece about 20 years old. And if you didn't know, 20 years or older is considered vintage, and 100 years or older is considered antique. So this is actually a vintage piece. All right, once we pop those hangers or hooks off there, I'm going to take just a little flat scraper from the Dollar Tree and pop out that backing because it's held in by these little tiny nails. Once we got that off, then there was another little area that had to be popped off. Look at that. Isn't that just cute? Now we'll pop that off and we'll save that little piece. It feels quite sturdy, so we never know. We might use that for something later on, but we're not finished yet. We've got one more little piece and I had to take the screws out of it to get this glass out. I don't normally leave all this in here, but I really wanted to show you all that you can take just about anything apart. This did not take long at all and turn it into something totally different. I went ahead and turned it upside down and took off those pegs that was like holders or hangers because we're going to be using this upside down to make it into something totally different. We're going to start with some IOD molds. Now normally I have a lot made up and I do, but I wanted to be able to bend these, so I just made them up with some amazing casting resin and they're still a little soft. I didn't wait for them to completely harden before I took them out of the mold. Once I get this on here, I'm going to be able to bend it down and put some hot glue on there to hold it in place to the shape that I want. Once I get this top mold the way that I want and it bent down with the hot glue holding it in place, I will add some more molds. I'm not going to show you all the molds that I add on here because it is a lot of repetitive of the same techniques. I do the same technique for all of these using mostly TITEBOND glue, the quick and thick, with just a touch of hot glue for that immediate hold. Hot glue sometimes is great for long-term hold, but in this case I want to make sure that I use something that's more long-term than hot glue. I wanted to tell you I covered up those holes where the pegs was with that mold at the top, and I extended that mold about 1 inch above the top so this would have more of a peak on it. The molds are strong enough that you can use them to extend or outline something. You don't have to just use them to the edge of your project. I took some of those little rose kind of corners off of one of the IOD molds and I put them, oh actually it was a Prima mold, I put them in the corners. Now that we have this framed out, I want to add something to that top and I settled on a bird. I had already had this made out of hot glue, and when you paint these you can't tell if they're made out of hot glue, resin, or clay. Now the clay sometimes looks definitely a little bit more vintage and grainier, but once you paint all of this it definitely looks cohesive, so the hot glue bird is perfect. To make my piece cohesive, I'm going to give this whole thing a coat, actually 2 coats of black chalk paint by Folk Art, and it totally transforms this piece, you guys. Oh, I'm so excited. There's so much more to come with this, but let's get this painted and then we'll move on to the next fun step. Now, if you're enjoying this project, wait until you see the one we do at the end of this video. Look at that. Ooh, it's so pretty. Okay, I'm taking this framed mirror and I want to use this mirror in this piece. Originally, I was going to make it kind of like a shelf thing, but then I thought, oh, this would be such a beautiful piece to sit on someone's little makeup area, little vanity. And it's not going to be the solid black, of course. I mean, I'm not going to go crazy on techniques on here, but what we're going to do is I'm going to use a different frame to put that mirror in because it's going to fit inside of this piece. I'm getting ready to show you, and we're going to paint this. I will go ahead and tell you in advance, I changed my mind on the paint color, but I want to make sure this frame makes this even look more elegant and have sort of like a mat going around the mirror. So I chose this blush pink, and I love the color, and the more I looked at it, the more subtle I wanted it to be. So I'll go ahead and, show you this and then show you what I end up doing with this piece here in just a little bit with the color change. Isn't this such a beautiful color? Now, I don't use a lot of pink in my home, but it doesn't mean I don't like it and I don't like to make things with it. I love to make things with pink and sell them. Occasionally, I'll make something with like a really toned down pink, more of a damask color, and keep it. But what I ended up doing is I finished that, and then I thought, we definitely have to use some gold on this. This is kind of a regal piece, but more under the dark and moody style. So I just got out my Rub and Buff in, I think it's just regular gold. I can't remember, but it's the plain one. It's not like there's antique gold. This is not. This is, I can't think of the name of it. Anyways, it was on there. If you look at the little tube, you can see it. So I'm just going to put this all over pretty heavy. I start out very light. You can always go back and change it and add more. But what I do is I go around the frame, the bird, and the mold at the top, and just a little bit on the edges of the other parts of this piece. I really want the black to pop out. I wanted to tell you also, before I did this, after I put my 2 coats of chalk paint on, I used that clear coat by Rust-Oleum matte finish to put on here and let it dry before we started with the waxes. I like to seal my chalk paint with a matte coat because once you start adding waxes and different color paints, you can run into it soaking up too much into the chalk paint without a sealer. You don't have to seal chalk paint. I see a lot of people make projects and they never seal it, but for me, I seal my pieces about 95 to 98% of the time. I know we've talked about this before in other videos. I get some of this gold in places I don't want it. What I'm going to do is take some clear wax. I'm going to use Debbie's Design Diary with just a paper towel, and I'm going to put that clear wax over the gold where I smudged it too much and rub it, and it's going to pull that gold back off. So if you put too much dark wax, black wax, gold, or even gold Rub and Buff, you can use clear wax to pull it back off, and it fixes all of that. I'm taking a small brush and getting down in those cracks because, like I said, I really want this to mostly be gold with some of the black coming through on these molds. As you can see, I've already changed the paint color from that blush pink to Victorian pink. Both of those are folk art paints, and I feel like this Victorian pink definitely is more of an elegant look for this. I feel like the blush pink was a little bit too of a hot pink, and I think this will give it a little bit more of a classic piece look. What I'm doing now is adding some of that TITEBOND Quick and Thick, a little bit of hot glue, and I'm going to add that frame in there. Now I have taken some of the Rub and Buff already around the edges of this pink frame to make it blend in with the gold on the black, as well as give it a little bit of a vintage look. Once I put that in there, we're going to do the same thing with the mirror. We're just going to press that mirror down in there. I'm going to add the hot glue and the TITEBOND glue on the outside back of the mirror and connect it with the sides of the frame. I don't want to put it on the inner rim of that mirror because I'm afraid, or the inner rim of that frame where the mirror is going to lay, because I'm afraid that it might squeeze out onto the mirror. Once we get that mirror in place, I'm going to replace the backing, and I've not painted it yet. I'm going to use some little gold nails to tap back in that white backing and then paint it black to match the rest of this piece. This is absolutely the type of project that I love to do. Taking something, turning it upside down or a different way, adding parts from other pieces to turn this into something new. This to me is the ultimate upcycle, thrift flip, making something over, not because of how it looks or my style, but just because of the way that it's done. I love that. I hope this inspires you to look at pieces in a different way and to use parts from other pieces to make something that no one else will ever have. The almost best part of this project is coming up. Hang with me. We are going to take these vintage knobs that have tons of coats of paint on them. I don't know where I got them. I drilled some holes in them and put screws in them so that I can make sure that they do not come off of the bottom of this. Although you can use things like TITEBOND or E6000, trust me, I've still broken these pieces off with just that glue. I want to make sure these aren't going anywhere. Now I will go ahead and put a little pieces of felt on the bottom, those little things you can get that already has the sticky, and you just peel them off so that those screws don't scratch anything. These legs just gave this an even better look. You all, I love this. I think someone could lay their jewelry on it. It's got that larger lip because that was actually a shelf, but now it's going to be a shelf in a different way. Someone could lay their earrings on, lipstick. Let me know what you think about this one. Our next project is definitely going to be another kind of outside of the box. Not that trays haven't been made out of frames for a very long time, but we're going to turn this into a tray. And I really wanted to find some handles for this, and I have a lot of metal ones. And when I was going through my drawer, I found these very rubbery but very hard feathers. They look like Christmas tree ornaments, but I thought, oh my goodness, would these not make the cutest handles? Because wait until you see the pattern that we're going to put on this tray. What I needed to do was go ahead and cut off some of the ends because they just looked a little funny with that stem on there. And I just used screws and my drill to drill these through the frame, and they held perfectly. I mean, this is a plastic frame. It's not real thick. It's a very nice frame, but I also didn't want to glue these on. Glue probably would have worked great for this because of the plastic, but I wanted to make sure that nothing came off of these pieces and they were very sturdy. I'm going to be putting these in my booth, my vendor booth, to sell. So I really like to make sure things don't fall apart after a while. With the screws, they're not going to go anywhere. Initially, I drilled pilot holes with my drill and then used that was with my drill holing bit. I'm sure there's another name for that. And then I used my screwdriver in to put the screws in through the feathers. I think I drilled pilot holes through the feathers too, but I can't remember. And then of course attach them to the frame. I went ahead and did the other handle off camera. Now we're going to give this a good coat of this folk art black chalk paint. Let that dry because we're going to come back and do a couple things to this. Now that our frame is dry, or while our frame's drying, I'm taking a white piece of cardstock that I cut out myself from the inner parts of this frame, and you'll see those in a minute because I do add them back. And I'm going to be using this gorgeous napkin. I have my fan on and that napkin's just blowing all over the place and I'm enjoying watching it, so I just left it. But it's a fern napkin. It has a lot of different probably types and names, but I don't know all of them. But I'm going to use this. I'm using my glue on that paper and I'm just going to roll this on. I'm not going to seal this or anything because it's going to be going behind glass for our tray. This napkin came from eBay. I get a lot of my napkins from eBay. You can buy one, you can buy two, you can buy three, and usually I buy a lot from the same person, or try to buy several. So I just want to let you all know because I do get some questions about the napkins. I also want to let you know that glue is Recollections. It's my favorite permanent bond glue. Now I didn't show this on camera, but I took 4 beads and did the same thing and put screws through them because I want this frame to be sturdy. I'm replacing all of the parts that came with this because if someone really wants to take this apart and put a picture in it and have a picture in their tray, they can. I'm taking some DIY aviary clay paint to paint over the feathers. I want them to mimic ferns, even though they aren't. I just thought that, it looks like they're ferns, and that's what we're going with. I do end up adding more green to this because the next step kind of tones this back too much, and I'll show you that coming up. It's always okay to go back and do something different for a project if you don't like the way it looks. Don't feel bad. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you do it how you want it. That's the point of playing around, having fun, making mistakes, and learning. I do get comments on my videos about people being maybe not scared, but just freaked out about trying certain techniques on things. And I definitely can't tell you how to feel. No one can tell you, oh, don't feel bad. Oh, don't feel scared. No, that's fine. You have your feelings. All I want to do is cheer you on to try it. It is just a physical item. Most of the time, it's stuff that we've thrifted that paid a few dollars. You can paint over it. You can throw it away. Trust me, once you jump in there and start doing it, you're going to feel better about it, and you're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. Paint those colors together. Do it on cardboard. Do it on a piece of paper if you don't want to try it on these thrifted items, or maybe even something that you have in your home that you've had for a long time. Try it on a $2 piece and then move to that item that you have more money in it. But the biggest thing is to try it. Don't be scared. Again, I can't tell you how to feel, but I am cheering you on. Play with it. Have a good time. All right, so I kind of want to make this frame look a little bit like bronze metal. So I'm taking this bronze fusion wax, I think this is wax, and just going all over this and getting it toned back to give it that sort of vintage look and bring out some of those gold colors in this napkin. Now the top part of this little jar is kind of thick, so I'm adding a little bit of water to it. This brush is not working. It is leaving all these blobs. I just don't like it, so I end up getting a stencil brush out, and it definitely blends this so much better. Brushes can definitely make a difference, the type of brush you're using, so definitely think about that. I'm not saying it has to be expensive, but this stencil brush is kind of fat and chunky and a flat head, and it just really makes this wax go on better. Okay, so I want to take this time to say welcome to all the new subscribers. I've talked to all of you all in the comments, and hello and thank you to all of my older subscribers. I talk to you guys also in the comments almost every week. I get such joy out of that, so I really appreciate your comments. Hit that thumbs up if you want to. If you're not subscribed and you keep coming back, hit that subscribe button. If you're having a problem getting that subscribe button to show up, let me know. I'll help you in the comments. Also, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to try to have a icon with my face on it at the end of this video, and if you click on it, you should be able to subscribe, or should be subscribed automatically to this channel. Alright, so I got all of that gold on there that I wanted, and now I'm using some black wax again to kind of tone it down and then give it that sort of metal look. I love the way the black wax totally changes this up, and you can see on the handles right now I am not loving this the way it turned them. I do take some black wax and go over those wood beads on the bottom, so they will blend in better with this piece. I go ahead and clear coat this because, again, you know, we're kind of back to, I used that clay paint in the beginning, and the green is not the right color. It needs to be sealed to bring it to that dark green that it originally showed when it was wet. So I do that, but where I put the waxes on, it still does not make that green a good color that I like to bring out the green in this napkin. By the way, sorry for the glare off this glass during this whole video. So I get out two of my fusion paints and I want to mix them together because there's a couple different greens in here that I want to bring out, and there's no reason to leave these handles just a solid green. So I get out I think this one's Carriage House, and then I get out Manor Green, and I kind of mix them together, and it definitely makes these handles pop more. I put just a little bit of that, I think I end up putting gold rub and buff on these to bring out more of the gold. If not, it's that same, no, I don't use that same color of the bronze. I use, I think, a little bit of gold rub and buff, and I love how this turns out. It definitely made a difference fixing those handles. So don't be scared to go back and change something if you don't like it. And this piece is done. Once these handles dry, we've got this cute little tray, and you can just sit just about anything on it. This is actually big enough you could carry out a couple drinks and do like a forest party. Oh, there's so many options. Let me know what you all think about this one. Do you like the handles on there? I think they just gave it a cute little different touch and made it more of a unique piece. Our last project is this handmade wood frame. It's very rustic. We're going to clean that up, and we're going to give it a good coat of white chalk paint. It's just a messy coat because this is going to be our base. We're going to be using some decoupage paper on this, and I really love the theme of this. I can't wait for you guys to see it. It just is adorable. Alright, so once I get that on there, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to put a good thick coat of Mod Podge and let it dry because we're going to be adding decoupage paper to this, and I'm going to do the iron-on method. And with that, you let your Mod Podge dry. You put your paper over top of the dried Mod Podge. You use your iron to reactivate the Mod Podge, and the paper sticks on its own. We're going to be using this plaid paper. It's a recycled paper. I cannot remember the official name of this. It's tartan, maybe, plaid. I'll try to have it linked in the description box below. We're going to iron this on. I have to cut the center of this out. Once I get this iron on, I'm going to take my little sander, and I'm going to sand all around the edges of this to get the excess paper off. I had bought 2 of these frames, and they didn't have any inserts or backing. We actually made one of these over in the spring. I think it's in the spring, with some molds in an aqua color. You guys might remember that if you've been watching my channel for a while. So this is the second one of these I had. Once I got that sanded off, I needed to cover up some of the white paint that was left. I did sand some of it off, and then the paper's edge was white. So I got my DIY dark wax out, went over the whole frame just to freshen it up, and then kind of went over those edges. Now some of that white was still showing, but that's okay because we want this to kind of look like a vintage piece anyways. Well, I mean, it is a vintage piece, but it's okay if it's a little tattered. I've really been wanting to use this paper, even though I didn't feel like I wanted to use it in the fall. I just was waiting for the right project. And Beth over at Aunt Bee's Attic, which I'm an affiliate with, sent me some papers, and this was one of them. It has these vintage type hats, men's hats, and it says gentleman something, and I was thinking, oh, I need to pair that with that plaid paper. And there's also aqua on this paper, which if you look at the plaid paper, it's got aqua in it too. So it worked out perfect. But she sent me these are an Autumn Sage Creations. I'll have her link in the description box below. Aunt Bee's Attic. All her shipping is $9 flat rate no matter what you buy, and her prices are always cheaper than anyone else's. So you just watched me put that white paint on this like chipboard piece, let it dry, and then I put the Mod Podge on, let it dry, and now I'm doing the iron-on method with this. That chipboard piece I had to pull out of another frame because this frame didn't have any backing, nothing with it. It was just this frame by itself, but it has the cutout for an 8x10 picture to go in it or backing. So that's what I used for the back of this. Wait until you see what we turn this into. This is actually going to be something purposeful. So what I'm doing is using some TITEBOND glue and some hot glue to put that piece in the back of it that I've used that decoupage. Well, it's a rice paper on there. So I knew I wanted this to be kind of like a little thing that I could hang in like a little man's area, especially like someone that loves the dapper look and wears hats and, you know, little ties. So I had these old hooks that are chippy. They've been painted a couple colors and some of it's chipped off. I just left them. They actually matched that rice paper perfect. So I had to drill some holes into this and screw those in. And then I took 2 more pieces of junk, such as this gold piece. It probably came off some furniture. I picked it up in a bunch of junk at a junk store. And I'm just using little gold nails to tap into the holes that's already there. And I had an old cabinet, brown, rusty looking pull, and I used screws to put into it. Then I painted chocolate over the screws, and now I'm using some gold rub and buff to put on that handle so it'll match that gold at the top just a little bit. Now I did have a little boo-boo on one of the squares of my paper, and all I did was cut out another square, take some of my glue stick and glue it over that square. I sealed this piece, let it dry. What do y'all think of this one? Now if you stayed until the end, leave me a gold star in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give me that like, subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment below, and I'll see you real soon in the next video.